So the only setup you need to know here is that this is a memoir about a sexual relationship that I had with my English teacher between the ages of 13 to 18. It starts November 1986, I'm 13 years old. A week passed, a week where my stomach felt light and empty whenever I stepped foot into English class. 2 weeks, 3. One night on the phone, Mr. Ivers asked me for a note from my parents that would sanction our phone calls. My stomach contracted. I held the telephone receiver away from my mouth so he wouldn't hear my intake of breath. Okay, I said, scrambling, to think of something to follow up with. I willed my voice to sound even. But my mom already knows we talk on the phone, and that it has to do with school. The lie felt sticky and fell to pieces in my mouth, like gum chewed for hours. Just get me the note, he said, before turning the conversation back to basketball, teaching English, or the way my mouth made him weak with desire as he sat behind his desk every day. When we hung up, I looked at the floor, deciding how to come up with a note. There was no question. I would ask my mother and not my father for the note. I knew I could explain to my mom that this teacher was kind and helpful and loved my writing, and that there was absolutely nothing abnormal about talking to him on the phone. He talks like we do, I said to her finally. He knows how kids like me feel. She wrote the note, eyeing me with her cloudy brown eyes. She went back to sipping her orange soda and vodka. I tiptoed back to my bedroom as I tiptoed throughout the house all the time. I picked up the cream-colored princess phone gingerly, as if it might break into a million pieces. In the yellow legal pad, I wrote, "Never, ever write anything down about us," Mr. Iverson cooed into my ear. "You can't tell a soul. I don't care who you trust. I'm totally fucking serious." I agreed and turned the yellow legal pad over on the bed to avoid staring at the sheets of written-out paper. I complained about my alleged best friend Abigail, about the boys at school, and about my parents and their unraveling. Their divorce was around the corner, though the word itself was not yet spoken. I felt justified in telling Veronica and Abigail about Mr. Ivers. They were the ones who meant the most to me, who I looked up to, the ones I wanted to know that I was in something dangerous and deep. I wanted to tell them particularly after Mr. Ivers went on and on about the girlfriend who left him. I had no such story to offer. I was a boyfriendless 13-year-old, still wondering if touching myself every night and my past hobby of making out with girls in my bedroom closet would put me in hell. I told these friends about the new development in my life, our teacher and I talking on the phone. Their eyes got big and their mouths fell open as I repeated the words, tallied the hours of phone calls. I swore them to secrecy, and their lips became tight with incredulous smiles, eyes shining with curiosity. After telling my friends, I noticed something different in myself. It felt like a haze of dirt followed me wherever I went. I learned not to speak of my situation very often. My friends never spoke of it unless I brought it up, which was rare. Mr. Ivers, or Jeff, as he began calling himself, made me aware of bodily responses, like the prickles of arousal that his scripted, well-detailed fantasies spoken aloud created in me. In my own fantasies, I envisioned us at candlelight dinners in restaurants I conjured up in my head, a collage of restaurants I saw in soap operas and TV movies. I imagined our legs tangled underneath the table, the way the shadows and our silent waiter might lend danger and seduction to our meeting, as so often happened in movies, scenes of secrecy, pleasurable and monumental undoing. He made his fantasies known to me, and I listened, admiring his courage to share what I thought were secret places requiring special access. I learned to chuckle huskily and not directly answer questions like, "Are your fingers inside of you?" Or, "Are you squeezing your tits like I would if I were there?" My body stopped short of responding to the choreography he directed. I listened instead, absorbed the words and sentiment, and played along. He provided erotic frameworks. I closed my eyes and focused on the tingle in my fingertips. My body was still mine, private, its inner workings hidden and mysterious even to me. I was vastly more comfortable daydreaming on my own, filling in empty scenes with abstract female bodies for pleasure, and even more abstract male bodies to assuage my guilt. I continued to document the formation of this new person I was becoming on the yellow pages, as though Mr. Ivers was helping to create me with his words, and I was compelled to transcribe the transformation. As with all my journals dating from the time I was 6, I made sure to include the details of every admission he made, the ways I implored him for more attention, without ever, I imagined, showing my true hand. I recorded the minutiae of our phone conversations and the encounters at school with an eye for the drama inherent in them, and also with an eye for what I was becoming. He kept asking me if I ever wrote about us. "Are you kidding?" I replied. "No, of course not." "Good, because you can't. If I found out you did, I didn't want us to end whatever the us was in the process of becoming." December 1986. That Christmas, I asked my mother for a copy of Lolita. It arrived as all books given to me did, wrapped in Christmas paper, pages in the book revealing bills of various denominations, 1s, 5s, 10s. Surprise! It wasn't the money I was interested in, though. It had a white cover. The title was spelled out broadly across the top. In the letters were the stratified sections of a picture of a young girl smiling, wearing a hint of lip gloss. My mother's writing in its opening pages. "My baby, don't get any ideas. Love, your mom." She didn't ask why I wanted this book, didn't know that I'd heard the name Nabokov in a song by the Police about a situation that sounded strangely similar to the one I was in. After holiday break, I was trying to read Lolita, trying to follow all the words, but I was giving up on the French and getting exasperated with the English. I reread sections about Humbert Humbert's fascination with prepubescent girls and wondered at them myself. My body, I decided, was not prepubescent, which accounted for people's eyes widening when I told them how old I was. I sifted through the descriptions and decided Humbert was a sick man. I felt sorry for him as I turned each page carefully after several thick minutes of struggling to decipher this prose. One afternoon, Eva and I were loitering in Mr. Ivers' classroom after school with a few other students. I decided to take a seat at a desk in front. Eva was blah-blahing about the homework assignment. Another kid stood in the doorway bouncing a basketball, yelling to someone outside over his shoulder. I whipped out the book from my bag and pretended not to notice when Mr. Ivers strode across the classroom and chided the kid with the ball about taking it out onto the courts. When he was done, I stared intently at the book, and then up at him, then down at my book. My eyes were scanning the book, then the linoleum, checking to see if his loafers came into my line of sight, signaling his nearness. I read and reread a single paragraph. I looked up and asked, "Mr. Ivers, what's folly mean?" I knew the answer, but I wanted engagement, acknowledgement of some kind. He sighed good-naturedly. He moved to the cabinet behind his desk. Out came an oversized dictionary. Oh, forget it. I rolled my eyes and pretended to return to this book with plenty of other words I didn't understand completely. Eva was twittering someone's ear off nearby. There were at least 4 other kids in the room in their own bubbles of conversation. My mom was coming to get me in about 30 minutes. Mr. Ivers set down the dictionary on the desk in front of me. He poked my shoulder with a finger, which felt like a dare. "Is this word from the nasty book you're reading?" he asked. "It's not nasty, it's a classic," I sniffed, pushing my glasses up on my nose with one finger. "It's about the young girl who wham-bams the older man, isn't it?" He smirked. I looked up at him like he was crazy, but my face betrayed me, softened into a quiet smile. "What word is it, Wendy?" he asked, leaning over me to open the dictionary to F. I was having a hard time breathing regularly. I wanted him to know this. He was so close to me now, his cologne driving me a little mad, and there was that tickle in my lower belly and heat rushing to my crotch. "Folly," I said, trying to appear calm. I listened to the outskirts of our conversation. Other kids in the class were talking, reading, doing homework. Nothing was askew. We were safe. "Fondle?" he asked. "Fondle? You want to know what fondle means?" He gently poked me in the shoulder again, chuckling. I could hear the purr in his voice, the one I was getting used to hearing on the phone almost every night. I could hardly take a full breath. If I did, I imagined I'd be taking in some of his breath along with mine, and there might be an explosion of flame. Whatever, I said loudly, pointedly. Folly, folly, I found it. Here, right here. I read the definition loudly enough for others to hear. When I finished, he slapped the large volume shut. Never be afraid to use the dictionary, he said, smiling mysteriously, and returned the book to the cabinet. I looked at the back of his sweater, and my mouth felt wet, slack. I breathed in deeply as if preparing to go underwater. 1987. Hours upon hours of talking about record albums, song lyrics, then looking up words in the dictionary, feeling as though I constantly need to catch up with him intellectually, the age difference suddenly feeling like a chasm until we get to the boiling point. The point where it all comes down to, I'm so hard for you, you are it, the most exciting thing at school. And I'm in bed, muffling my voice under a pillow with the phone to my ear, hand in my underwear, talking quietly, assuring, chuckling with my new sexy voice and realizing the whole, the power I have over this person who moans and grunts and flicks his tongue at me through the phone like I have never experienced before. This is no kid. This is no boy. This is no finger fuck in the park. This is no rush of kisses in a dark movie theater. This is sex across wires. This is gut-wrenching, first time ever, losing red love. This will be hot, angry tears and hanging up the phone later. This will be promises broken and fingers touching clandestinely in classrooms. But right now, this is power in the curve of my hip, the way I turn to face him, the mystery of my turtleneck sweater, power in the sound of my whisper, power in the arch of my back and pout of my lips. This is fire, air, drowning, gushing, purging. This is illegal. Thank you.
Yes!